Good afternoon, investors. This time we are talking about the Fed and why many now believe that major pain is almost guaranteed based on what has been coming out of the Fed in the past week or so. We're going to be looking into that in this video, so do subscribe if you haven't already done so. Diving in straight away, what we can see is some big information coming from Jerome Powell. So the Fed's chair, which is of course Jay Powell, has indicated that the US economy may be entering a point for seeing some pain. We've heard stories like this from many analysts in the past, but now to hear it from somebody with the status of Powell is very interesting and arguably quite worrying. Again, he's given us some straight talk saying that Americans will need to brace for some pain and look for a slowdown in hiring and higher interest rates. And that is quite profound to hear it from somebody of his status. Now, this has had an effect on the markets. We have seen the markets fall again on the time of this being announced from Mr. Powell. We saw the effect on the markets as I have outlined here, but even since then, in the past 5 days, S&P is down by 5%, and a similar story is same for a lot of the indices, continuing to the downtrend that we've seen for the majority of this year. This added selling pressure confirming the end of the 1 month bull run that we have seen throughout the month of July, again continuing our downtrend. And this has had a profound impact across all markets. So don't think that the other markets such as crypto, perhaps such as commodities like gold and silver have not been affected, because each and every sector has kind of felt a bit of a shockwave based on this info coming from Powell. And there's a reason why his words are so powerful. Again, for once we're hearing from a major figure the truth as they see it. We always hear the major figures from big banks, etc., telling us what we want to hear, but actually now we're hearing from Powell, no, this is going to be painful and we should brace for it, which is actually quite refreshing and reassuring, because I would rather, in my opinion, that he was honest with us and we knew what to expect than he told us a load of lies and continued to kick the can down the road. I'm sure most people will agree with that statement. And again, prior to this, there's been a lot of loose messaging on what's actually going to happen and how the Fed will tackle the issues that we are currently seeing in the economy. But now Powell has came out with a stark statement saying that he's going to use his tools forcefully to attack inflation. But the question is, what does this look like? Well, here's what we know already. We know that in his Wyoming policy speech, Powell has now added that interest rates will probably persist for some time, and historical records caution strongly against prematurely loosening policy. So when we're seeing interest rates perhaps stay high, this is not necessarily anything to be that worried about, because when we see improvements in inflation, it's more important to not be swayed by 1 or 2 months of data like Powell says. Again, we need to look at a more rounded picture, not have a look at what's happening in the very, very short term. It's more important to get a wide scope and a real understanding as to what's going on in the economy, as to not further add to the complications that we're seeing right now anyway. Now, this is going to have an effect on the markets. And what's going to happen that we're going to be seeing is, whilst higher interest rates and softer labour market conditions tend to bring down inflation, they also will bring some pain to households and businesses. That is what he said. So he says, these are unfortunate costs of reducing inflation, but a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. I think that Powell is completely right. So this has been a relatively short video, but let's have a discussion quickly on what that actually means. So bringing the economy effectively into a recession, arguably even a managed recession or a purposefully built recession, if you will, that may seem like a terrible thing, but obviously it is better than the alternative, which could be an economic collapse of a magnitude that we haven't really seen in the US before. And simply put, we will have to absorb this pain because, again, it is better than the prior thing that we just outlined. The Fed looking to quantitative tightening in the future months, and we're going to see what that is going to happen, or what's going to happen and how that's going to play out. And this, in my opinion, is what we're seeing as an effect of the whole idea of kicking the can down the road. We've seen this for some time, and we need to remember that we cannot expect all of these things that we've seen both in the past couple of months, but also in the past couple of years, and in the past couple of decades to go without any effect. We can't expect continuous quantitative easing, money printing, stimulus as well. We can't expect all of that sort of thing, generally speaking, to have no negative impacts on the economy. I think the negative effects that we're seeing right now, these are the things which we are going to be paying for in the next couple of weeks and months. So the question is, how far down do we go from here? Well, that is very, very hard to say. But what we can do is have a look at what we're seeing now, and we know that this downtrend has continued. The small bull run that we saw throughout the period of July, well, that's not uncommon as to what we see when it comes to economic downturns generally. We see a small bull run in the bear decline. But what I'm trying to say here in this relatively short video is simply this. We're now hearing it from a major figure that we should be prepared. Now, again, I would rather that they told us honestly, but the point is simple. We've seen all of this help in the economy in the past couple of years, and now we're going to have to stop paying for that. We're going to be seeing that in the decline in the economy, again, potentially mass layoffs coming, market crashes that we have spoken about before, and all of this is going to come in the midst of what we're already seeing as a so-called cost of living crisis. But again, whilst it is painful, it is probably better than to see the opposite happen, where we see this far greater pain scenario. So we tried to do this video quite quickly, guys. What do you think is going to happen, and what do you think it's going to look like? Are you worried, and what is your strategy right now when it comes to playing the markets? I want to hear your opinions down below, so do drop me one. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you all again.